Hello and welcome to Tuesday's programme.
Coming up tonight between now and 6:30.
Good evening. A woman from Exeter has spoken of her humiliation after being forced off her flight at Bristol Airport and missing out on a once-in-a-lifetime 50th birthday treat.
Charlotte Barton had already taken her seat on the plane when another passenger arrived with the same seat number. EasyJet says it's still investigating how the overbooking wasn't resolved before boarding.
Well, in a moment, we'll be hearing from the travel expert Simon Calder about how often this happens and what your rights are. But first, Richard Lawrence has the story. Now, if you're eating your dinner, you might want to look away now because a huge fatberg has been discovered in a sewer in Sidmouth, the biggest ever found by South West Water.
Well, there you go. Didn't expect to see that on tonight's programme, did you? Elsewhere in the region tonight, it has been announced that Exeter's House of Fraser has been saved from closure. The store's Now, MPs are preparing to restart the debate over Theresa May's Brexit deal tomorrow, with the Prime Minister hoping that many rebels will have changed their minds.
With time running out before the UK is set to leave the EU, political tensions and divisions are increasing, and a number of MPs have expressed concerns about their safety whilst outside the Houses of Parliament. Well, our political correspondent David Wood is in Westminster for us this evening. David, what started this?
Well, Kylie, as you probably remember...
And the ITV News continues with the national and international stories at 6:30 with more on Brexit. Mary Nightingale has the details. But before that, the warning: calorie counting apps can aggravate eating disorders and be dangerous for vulnerable people using them.
Despite being used by many to successfully lose weight, experts and charities are warning that they can be harmful if misused. Well, Amy Soul from Roche in Cornwall used MyFitnessPal when she had anorexia and says she was in fear of eating too much for 3 years.
When I was really ill and I was about to be admitted, I'd put all my food in and I'd say complete the day, and a notice would pop up being like, you've eaten under the minimum recommended amount, this is not safe. And I'd use that in a negative way, being like, okay, I've done what I need to do today, I've eaten as little as I can.
Talk me through a day on MyFitnessPal when you were eating the least.
Okay, so I had fat-free...
We're not telling you exactly how little she ate because it could be dangerous for other people with anorexia. But Evie's weight dropped so low she needed hospital care. Experts treating people with eating disorders say for some, calorie-counting apps can be dangerous.
The problem with an eating disorder mindset is that they will always try and beat everything. That sense of undercutting almost feels like a badge of honour. And it almost feels like, well, I can survive on less than what everybody else is saying. It's almost quite evangelistic. It is almost that kind of, well, I'm empowered by feeling hungry and I don't need as much as you're saying I need. And that's why it is a mental illness.
MyFitnessPal does have protective features. It warns those who record too few calories to review their goals. It also restricts people from entering a target BMI below 18.5. That's the level considered underweight.
But eating disorder charities say more could be done to protect vulnerable users.
We'd obviously encourage those that feel that they're at risk of an eating disorder, suffering an eating disorder, to do everything they can to avoid those kind of apps. We would encourage the manufacturers of those apps to seriously consider how to make the risks smaller.
Runner Amy said it was while she had an eating disorder that she started using MyFitnessPal, and says it left her living in fear of eating more than her target calories for 3 years.
If I exceeded it, I'd lost control of everything, and that was my biggest problem, was I needed the control. You're down to counting really silly things, you've eaten one grape, oh, record the grape.
The obsession of logging every single piece of food became too much. Amy sought medical care and is now recovered, but realises it could have been much worse, and says she would warn others with eating disorders against calorie-counting apps.
I'd say don't use it. It's the one app that is probably worse for people than anything else, I think. I lost 5 years of my life. I had like big celebrations. I had my 30th birthday, things like that, things that should have been a real celebration of like your life and things, and I missed it all, really. So that's the saddest thing. I'll never get that time back.
People hate me when I say this, but gaining weight is difficult. I never realised how much I have to eat. and it is hard, especially when you don't want to eat. So it's not something I enjoy, and I just hope that if there's other people like me that don't actually like being underweight, it's kind of like we're all in the same boat. Like, it's not nice being underweight.
That was Evie there. Well, if you've been affected by any of those issues, there's help.
Now it's just gone 18 minutes past 6. You're watching ITV News here in the West Country, still ahead before 6:30.
But before that, to the news that all secondary school children are to be taught first aid CPR in a landmark decision which campaigners say will save thousands of lives.
Charities have long been calling for the life-saving lessons in schools and welcome the news. It will now be part of the national curriculum. The decision has also been praised by one father whose son saved him when his heart stopped at home. Here's Matt Price. And if you want some more information, then there is a step-by-step guide on how to perform CPR that is all available on our website.
Now, the remains of an aircraft discovered near Plymouth have been identified as potentially belonging to an RAF bomber.
Part of a rusty propeller was caught by a fishing vessel in its Potts line over the weekend, and experts have identified it as a British-made engine from the Second World War, but are raising questions over how it ended up several metres below Plymouth Sound. Nick Smith has the story. Now, next on the programme, how are your New Year's resolutions going? Because exercise is often a popular one, and as part of our Winter Wellbeing series, we've been to meet one man from Tavistock who has just completed a gruelling exercise target.
Yeah, to explain all, we can cross live now to Nick Lane's gym in the Devon town and join our reporter Jackie Bird, who's there for us. So, Jackie, what did he actually do then in 2018? Thanks very much. Now, we were going to ask Alex to do a burpee, but for health and safety reasons, we can't. His clothes are too tight. That's the reason why.
We've been there before.
You just said that. But that is actually the reason. However, what I do recommend is the raised lunge.
We have to work at this desk every day.
Back over there. Tell us about the weather. It was a bit nicer today, wasn't it?
It was actually pretty...
OK, Alex, thank you very much for the weather forecast, less so the stretching lessons. Now, before we go, let's remind you of the main headlines here in the West Country this evening. And
that's it from us this evening. I'll be back with the late news. That's at the usual time of 10:30.
Now I'll hand you to Mary Nightingale as the ITV News continues. From all of us,
Bye-bye.
Bye.